Hello, welcome to a new episode of Talk Turkey.
Hello, Nevşin. Turkey is increasingly difficult to understand, even for Turks. And we are here today, once again, try to explain a complicated matter, which is confusing for many in the West. I mean, there are always new confusing issues. And this time it's about whether Turkey is joining the Shanghai Cooperation Organization. If you like, I can start with a summary and then you can continue.
Please do. Yes.
So what happened is the following. Following the Samarkand summit of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, it was held on 15 and 16 September, President Erdogan stated that Turkey wants to join the organization. We should also note that it was an important summit because it's also where Iran's application for accession has been approved. And then only 2 or 3 days later in New York, President Erdogan said that Turkey is one of the 5 most important members of NATO. A bit confusing. And we are used to such statements, though, especially in domestic politics. I can see that many people in the West are totally confused. Either they don't know what to think about this or they overanalyze these statements. My main message would be, I mean, keep calm. This happens regularly. Do not panic. Turkey is not leaving NATO. Turkey is not joining SCO. I feel like it's also a bit similar to what's going on, for example, about the death penalty issue in domestic politics. The government talks about it now and then. President claims that if parliament passes the bill, he would approve. AKP has majority in the parliament. His nationalist partner, MHP, supports this idea, but this doesn't happen. And very similar to this, it's not the first time, actually, President Erdogan raises the issue of SCO membership. In 2016, he stated that EU is not everything and Turkey can also join Shanghai 5. That's the old name of the organization. There was also a similar statement back in 2013, 9 years ago, when he also compared the EU and SCO and talked about SCO as an alternative to the EU membership. It's not really the equivalent of the EU, though. To be honest, it's not even equivalent of NATO, but it is certainly a sort of wannabe security organization, SCO. The big question is if Turkey is really willing to join. And why, if so, why there's no official application since 2013. That's a mystery. Turkey is a dialogue partner of this organization since 2012, but it's not a big deal because there are some other countries, for example, from the EU's Eastern Partnership countries, Armenia and Azerbaijan are dialogue partners. There are also countries like Qatar, Egypt, Saudi Arabia. So it's not an important mechanism. The rules of SCO is also clear. According to the rules, countries which are members of alliances that are in an hostile approach towards members of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization cannot join the organization as a member. And the Russian Foreign Ministry reminded this rule following President's statement. And of course, the alliance with an hostile approach, according to Russia, has a name. That's NATO. And Russia has also stated that no official application from Turkey for accession yet, so there's nothing to talk about either. In my opinion, there's no real desire to join. I mean, first and the most important reason, the organization has almost nothing to offer to Turkey. I mean, there are certain reasons, maybe not valid for the current government, such as democracy, fundamental rights and freedoms, because, I mean, we are talking about an organization with countries with the worst record in terms of democracy and freedoms. And Iran is joining too now, so it's going to be a real dream team in that sense. But then there are also issues the current government would and should care. One of them is economy. Russia is, increasingly important for Turkey. China is also playing a role in Turkish economy, but Russia or China, they cannot really replace the economic ties of Turkey with the West. And then security. We are not really talking about a successful security alliance either. There's no clear security apparatus, no clear security doctrine. It's mainly dominated by Russia and China. And even then, they cannot agree on majority of the issues. There are also major disputes between its members. So it's not really an alternative. And then the second reason, Russia and China would not really want Turkey, if you really think about it. They don't have similar interests with Turkey in Central Asia, Caucasus, Black Sea, Middle East, Balkans, Eastern Mediterranean, name it. I mean, we cannot really see these countries eye and eye with Turkey. And we shouldn't forget that Turkey joined NATO because of the USSR threat, because Russians wanted to have free access to the Mediterranean. And this goal has not changed in the meantime either. We see the importance of Turkish Straits nowadays when it comes to Russia's invasion of Ukraine. And Russia still has this goal, I mean, having access to Mediterranean. In that sense, also, there is a potential conflict even with Turkey. So then why, very briefly, is Turkish government's main short-term priority? It's all about this. It's all about economy. They aim to either improve economy or at least give such an image to the public ahead of the elections in 2023. It's impossible to talk about a real long-term geopolitical strategies. I mean, let me tell you something, there's no strategy. And I'm a bit surprised seeing all these Western analysts trying to understand strategies of Turkey, what Turkey really wants. Is Turkey turning away from the West? What is the long-term goals of Turkish government? There are none. I mean, there is a short-term goal, it's the economy, and there's nothing beyond this. So, and despite global developments, increasing polarization between the West and Russia and China, somehow Turkish government believes that they can do business with both and without any consequences. I think that's the point we need to talk about. I mean, if Turkey really understands what's going on in the world.
Yeah, we'll come to that. But like, let me add a couple points. I mainly agree with you, but to further say, I mean, to give an example, after this Shanghai Cooperation Organization's climax, that meeting, Mr. Erdogan said our end goal is to join this cooperation organization. Then there was a remark from Russia. They said, well, a NATO member can never join, so Turkey has to leave NATO to join Shanghai, Cooperation Organization. After that, then there was no further remark from Turkey. And after that, Ibrahim Kalın was on NTV, one of the Turkish news channels, and Ibrahim Kalın is the chief, one of Erdogan's chief advisors. But Erdogan has hundreds of advisors, but Ibrahim Kalın is one of the prominent ones. He advises him on foreign policy. He's not the only one, though. I'll come to that in a second. Ibrahim Kalın said on NTV, while Erdogan made this remark, actually, this was rather a message to the EU, he said. So it's like maybe some of our viewers are watching Turkish soap operas. It's always like there are a lot of these love triangles, and usually they want to make each other jealous, so they play all these tricks in these love triangles and stuff. So, sound a little bit like that to make EU jealous or something. I don't know. So that was his remark. So he said, well, we want to cooperate with the EU, further cooperate and complete our deals with the Americans. That was the message, he said. Well, further than that, I think I agree with you that there is no Turkish grand strategy or even foreign policy. I agree with you on that. There are different cliques. I mean, there's one side of it. One side is there are different cliques within the palace, close to Mr. Erdogan, and some are not. Some are totally irrational people. And these people, they sincerely believe that Turkey has to leave NATO immediately and become closer to China and Russia. There are these people, there are these cliques. Sometimes they're closer to Erdogan, and Ibrahim Kalın is trying to balance all that. There is that, this irrationality. And also there is this, I always, in my Turkish videos, when I talk about Turkey's foreign policy, I always say foreign policy of soup money. Soup money is so I refer to, in Istanbul, back streets of Istanbul, if you're doing business, if you're like a petty, business person, so you cut deals, right? And when you cut deals, you get your 20%. So that's how you live. That's what you live on. So actually, this is Turkey's foreign policy. Let's be honest. I mean, whoever gives you the 20%, I mean, you meaning like there are different people in cadres within the palace here and there. They want their 20%, no matter what, like whatever deal. So if you can give that, you do the business. I mean, that's the thing. There's no, I agree, there's no grand strategy, some things. No, I mean, people are after their 20%. So that's it. Whoever gives 20% gets the deal. Whether be it weapons, whether be it defense systems, whether be it whatever, I don't know, a ton of paper. So that's how Turkey rolls these days. So I think if one wants to understand Turkey, like this should be the first item, not this, playing this, playing that. I mean, and also there's that balancing foreign policy legacy, like Turkey is a NATO member, but Erdogan always stresses that, like, well, we are a NATO member, but we have to be talking to Russia. It's an important player. It's an important, also in a sense, Turkey's trade partner, whatnot. We have these ties. We cannot cut these ties. So Turkey is trying to be this negotiator, whatnot. I mean, one has to keep in mind that the only thing that Mr. Erdogan wants is a photo op with the Ukrainians and Russians, and he wants to be the deal maker. He wants to be seen as a world leader. That's important. That's being listened to before the upcoming elections of Turkey. So that's his main goal. And as far as I understand, Ukrainians know this. So he always emphasizes, well, I'm talking to Mr. Putin. Actually, he wants peace. So I'm talking to Zelensky also. Well, I'm going to find a balance and I'm going to be the peacemaker. He very badly wants to be in this photo op. On the one side, Mr. Putin, on the other side, Mr. Zelensky, and he wants to be like in the middle, deal maker. What an important leader, whatnot. That's his only the other goal. So maybe from that we can go to this, other topic that we can elaborate a little bit more on. Do Turkish politicians understand what really is going on with the world, especially around this?
That's really connected as well, because if you don't understand,
you go for it.
You have a guest as well. Well, I mean, it is really wartime, and Russia is the #1 enemy of NATO. China is not far from this status. And as a NATO member, especially as an important NATO member, this policy cannot be pursued for a long time. That's the main point. You can call it opportunism, balanced policy, strategic hedging, whatever you call it, but it is not sustainable. I mean, Turkey tried this during the Iran sanctions. It worked to a certain extent. It also created certain trouble with the US, and there are still consequences of this. But this is very different. I mean, the environment is very different. The perception of threat is very different. The level of hostility is different. And while we are talking about the potential even nuclear war, and so seriously after such a long time, after the collapse of the Soviet Union, Turkey cannot claim that I am friends with everyone, I do business with everyone, and I don't care. That's why I think pressure on Turkey from the West is growing and will grow. And in any case, the West will not allow Turkey to help Russia to evade sanctions, especially by using Western sanctions as an opportunity. And I'm quite surprised to see that this is not understood in Turkey. I mean, the pressure in Turkey is already there. We have started to see the consequences. I mean, recently, Turkish private banks suspended the use of Russian Mir payment system. It happened 2 weeks ago. And then in this week, Turkish state banks also suspended the use of the system in order to avoid potential consequences following the pressure from the United States. So you cannot be a member of the Western political and economic system and help Russia to evade sanctions nowadays. This is clear. This message, I think, is given to Turkey more and more and more and more clearly. I think Western countries are appreciating Turkey's position to a certain extent that, okay, Turkey doesn't implement similar sanctions. Turkey has a different role here. Turkey can still talk to Putin, to Russia to a certain extent. This role is appreciated to a certain extent and even tolerated by the West. But this cannot go beyond this to a point that Turkey helping Russia to evade sanctions and getting profit out of this. So But this is for the government side. Maybe you can also elaborate if opposition, for example, understands. I'm not sure about this either, because our main focus is really nowadays domestic politics. I mean, we are such a close country. We don't try to understand what's going on in the world. And there are maybe not, those people are not even in politics. What do you think?
No, I mean, I don't think Turks understand what really is happening there in the Ukraine. And they don't understand that this war is a benchmark that is redefining the West. You know, what a West is, what are the principles of the West and what really is happening. Turks do not understand that. Turks have been thinking, you know, well, there's going to be this war and then Russia is going to cut the gas and Germans going to get cold and they're going to have bad economy and then Putin will win, whatnot, you know. That's what more or less people think. But on the other hand, especially politicians, like nobody's talking about that. No one, zero. Like the opposition, you don't hear anyone say anything about that. Zero, nothing, you know. And in the beginning of the war on Turkish TV's mainstream media was full of pro-Russian analysts, you know, some retired generals. They have been wrong, you know, from the beginning of the war because they predicted, well, you know, Russia is going to invade whole Ukraine in like 2 days, whatever. They were wrong, but it doesn't matter. They're still preaching the, you know, same spiel. So there is that on the mainstream media. There's this pro-Russianism, pro-Putinism, and on the other hand, in terms of the government, I mean, ontologically, they cannot be anti-Putin, because this government stands on the idea of a strong one man in Turkey. So ontologically, they see their reflection in Russia in a sense, or vice versa, you know. So they cannot be ontologically against Russia or something. They see a lot of parallels with Putinism in Russia with themselves. But on the other hand, Turkey's interests lie with the West and in a sense with Ukraine. I mean, I always say that, I'm going to emphasize it again. You know, Mr. Erdogan's son-in-law is selling Bayraktar drones to Ukraine. Bayraktar drones have been doing a great job in Ukraine against Russian forces, by the way. I mean, we saw them in Azerbaijan-Armenia war. Now, actually, you know, totally their star has risen in Ukraine-Russia war. They're doing a great job. They're symbolic drones in Ukraine's resistance against this occupation. But I think if this was not the case, if his son-in-law was not selling drones to Ukraine, that would totally be a different story. Then Turkish government would go full force pro-Russia. I mean, I'm pretty sure that would be the case. So it's again this whoever, you know, because they're earning money from this. So this is why there is that kind of balancing, sometimes a little bit pro-Ukrainian stance with the government side. But at least one positive thing is like the Turkish government has stated clearly that Turkey will not be recognizing the referendums, so-called referendums in the eastern Ukraine done by Russia. So Turkey is rather staying on the West side. And I agree with you. I mean, Turkey cannot really prolong that, you know, we're balancing, we're also talking to Putin, but like we're standing with Ukraine. It's going to be more and more difficult. And this is like the new Cold War. And in which camp Turkey sees itself? I mean, Turkey does not see itself as a democracy, let's be honest. I mean, it doesn't. I mean, and the supporters of the government, they do not really want, I mean, they understand something else from democracy. So they don't really embrace these Western values that are being redefined and being strengthened in when the West is redefining itself. So they don't comply with it. I mean, they rather see themselves in parallel with Russia. So it's not going to be easy for the government to, you know, come up with a new policy about that. We'll see. But on the other hand, yeah, the opposition, they seem uninterested because they're discussing among themselves who's going to be the candidate against Erdogan. That's their top topic. And economy, however, I don't think they understand that actually Turkey's fundamental economy problems also lie in here, like Turkey's misunderstanding of the world. Turkey sincerely misunderstands the world, because the narrative had been both on the government and also like partially on the opposition side. They sincerely believe that the West has come to an end, and it's like the China and Russia who are the rising stars, and they're going to be leading the world. And nobody in Turkey now, I mean, this is like everybody memorized that, and nobody talking about this housing crisis in China and how Chinese economy is crashing, basically. And we will not be able to see all these growth rates ever again in China for like a longer time. Nobody's talking about that. So Turkey is misreading the world, and they're not understanding what's happening in the world, especially the political elites, though. I mean, in that sense, Turkish public is actually maybe they're more in their senses. I can show you a little bit some polls, and you can comment on them too, Murat, if you like. These are the polls run by Kadir Has University, one of the, relatively good universities in Turkey. And every year they do this, how Turks perceive the foreign policy, right? And they ask Turks to define, how do they define Turkey? Is it like a European country or what? So in 2021, 40% thought Turkey was a European country. This year, it is only 29.1%. They think Turkey is a European country. 25.5% they think Turkey is a Middle Eastern country. 16.2% think Turkey is a Mediterranean country. 15.6% think Turkey is Turkey. It is what it is. 8.4% think Turkey is a Caucasian country, a Caucasus. 2.9% thinks Turkey is a Balkan country. 2.3% think Turkey is a Black Sea country. So more and more, I mean, last year, more people thought Turkey was a European country, and Turkey is getting away from this European aspect in a sense. These are the first numbers. Do you want to comment on these first before moving on?
Yes, I mean, this perception also, I think, connected to a set point where Turkey has become also a very closed country in the last few years. People don't really follow what's going on in the world. Many are still believing in the dynamics, as you suggested, like dynamics of the world similar to like 20 years ago, maybe, or at least at the discourse level, that's what they see, they read. There's also a fact that a part of the society where we can call like secular, used to be Western-minded Turks, there's also a level of disappointment because of the policies of the Western countries. Nowadays, we must note that this disappointment is growing because in terms of Turkish visa applications, there are also major issues. I mean, many young people, even when they want to go to European countries for their studies, their visas are rejected. This is the same for many prominent journalists, intellectuals, business people. So this is also potentially a reaction. I mean, they are emotionally, I think, quite sad that, and they feel that they were left alone by the West, while they are the strong believers of the values such as democracy and freedom. So that's partially that. I mean, in terms of the support to NATO or Shanghai Cooperation Organization, or taking a side between Ukraine or Russia, I think there is a general consensus, at least at the discourse level, and there's also, I think, a very clear support from the public opinion also. But both government and opposition parties, except maybe very marginal ones, as a discourse, they support Ukraine and Ukraine's positions. And it's not a new thing. I mean, also it was the same during the annexation of Crimea as well. Turkey has never recognized that. Of course, Turkey has other ties as well with the Crimean Tatars as well. And Turkey is openly criticizing Russia's invasion, call it an invasion. Turkey is openly stating that Turkey won't recognize the results of the so-called referendum. So, I mean, at the policy level, Turkey has not been really openly supporting Russia. That's a very clear fact. On the other hand, we talked about the ambiguous role, and then I'm not sure whether it's really connected to politics or economy or misunderstanding the dynamics in the world.
All of them.
Yeah, but I'm not sure if there is a strong, maybe that's something we should discuss before concluding. I'm not sure if there's a strong pro-Eurasian trend in Turkey. And I mean,
yeah, you can see here actually, they ask here the support for NATO membership. 60% of Turks, they think that Turkey should resume being a NATO member. Turkey should be a NATO member. 18.8% they think the military side of NATO membership should be just put aside for now. I don't know that. And 11.4% they think relations with NATO should be frozen. Only 9.8% think Turkey should stop being a NATO member. So yeah, there is a strong, actually it's becoming stronger and stronger. It used to be even like, I remember like in the early 2000s, there was this anti-NATO sentiment. I think this number has risen. Now there's that stronger support being a NATO member. Probably people instinctively understand that actually, you know, this is an important club. This is like the first club, right? First club, like the most important. And you got to be a member of this club. It gives you advantages, gives you opportunities. And I sometimes see comments, you know, when we talk about on my videos about this Russia-Ukraine war, for example. Some people comment, some people liken it to Turkey's independence war, in a sense, because Turkey had that independence war against aggressors and, you know, the occupants. So they see a parallel also, like, you know, simple people. So that's why probably after this war, Ukraine-Russia war, people have gotten to understand how important being a NATO member is. I think that's also an element.
And I mean, I think there is a trend, like some sort of pro-Eurasian trend, but I believe that this is still a very small minority, but probably a small but also a loud minority. It's also a strange group coming from very different political backgrounds. I mean, I was thinking of people who are anti-NATO, for example, in Turkey, and then I could summarize 4 main groups. One of them, former communist, Maoist, far left, I mean, however you call them. They have always been anti-NATO. They have always been protesting against NATO. During Cold War as well, they were pro-Russia, anti-America. So it's not a surprise. And then there is this anti-American, secular, nationalist left groups. They used to be, some of them, they used to be far left, and then they moved to center, but they still have this anti-American feeling coming from 1960s. And then a very small portion of anti-West Islamist groups, because traditionally they were not actually in the anti-NATO camp, but they've joined this camp rather recently. And then we have the 4th group. It's a new one. We can see some intellectuals, some like former generals, army officers, etc., who are disappointed by the attitude of the EU and the US towards Turkey, especially connected to Gülenists and what they did to secular people in the army, and the silence of the West. So they sort of changed their opinion, and I think it's also an emotional reaction. And we see a clear anti-NATO, anti-US, anti-West approach among them. But still, the combination of all these 4 groups, it's a small minority. But as there are intellectuals, journalists, analysts, former generals among them, they're also quite visible, because these people are also on TVs, especially on pro-government channels. We see many of them. And they give an image that this trend is getting stronger, but it's not really happening, in my opinion.
Yeah. By the way, to be just, actually, main opposition party of Turkey is CHP. They released a statement about Russia's invasion of Ukraine and the latest so-called referenda. They are stating that, of course, they're not recognizing the referenda, and they say, CHP, the main opposition party, they say they are actually supporting the steps taken by the international community against the occupation of Russia towards Ukraine. So they are like, we stand with the international. They underline that we stand with the international community, which is positive, because there could be a governmental change in Turkey in 2023. So actually, at least we know what opposition thinks and what opposition is going to look like. So that's important.
I mean, in terms of the political position, E Party, the second biggest opposition party, I think the leader Meral Akşener was also very clearly pro-Ukrainian as well, saying that she's even celebrating them against this anti-imperialist invasion. So, but this doesn't mean, I mean, in political sense, it means a lot, but it doesn't mean that all these parties, they are still like following what's going on, or if they have clear positions, or if they know what they will do and they won if they come to power next year. And we are really talking about in 8-9 months now. So I hope they will also start talking about these issues following the decision of the candidate, because that's one of the main issues probably in the coming weeks. We should also talk about this because, as you mentioned, the opposition is trying to clarify, hopefully, the one candidate where all opposition parties can support.
Yeah, we'll cover that too in Talk Turkey. No worries.
Bye for now then.
Bye.